Okay, so today let's do something different. Let's do a snake game in Scratch. So Scratch is obviously a free service from MIT. Uh, it's what you'd call a VPL, a visual programming language, where it's similar to Blockly from Google. I guess Google got inspired by MIT. Um, And the way it works is that this is the interface. Once you let's pop over here. So this is the starting page, and you can look at a lot of very nice projects. Some of them are a little messy, but there's a lot of good stuff there. If you go create, it creates a new project for you. And what we have here is this is our work area. Over here we have our sprites. There's one sprite right now. It's Scratch, the mascot for Scratch. hmm Um, there's some stages here. We're not going to use that today. Um, this is the area where we are working with code. You can see I have the code tab. So basically, this whole 70% of the screen is based on these tabs. So right now I'm writing code, and you can see that there's a ghosted version of my sprite here. So that means that it's Scratch that we're putting code in. If I add another sprite, just let me grab an apple for instance, you can see that depending on which one I have active, I'm doing code for one. So if I'm mm-hmm, yeah, yeah, okay. So if I put some code in this one, it's not in that one. So code is specific to the sprite. That's important to remember. Also, we have costumes, which is basically the sprite drawing program here, where you can change sprites. We're going to use that in a bit. And we have sounds, and sounds are specific to the sprite as well. So you can see that there's a chomp sound here for the apple, makes sense. And for the scratch thing here, there's a yeah, also makes sense. So the way it works is that we have this green flag, which means start the game, and we have the red button here that means end game. Often we don't need to use that because we just need to start it. And we have these sections. So we have motion-based things that are blue, so that moves stuff around. We have look-based things, turns off, etc. things. We have sounds. We have events, which are pretty important. There's a little funny thing here with controls. I'll just cover that in a second. So events are like signals being sent, and the important one is this one. When green flag clicked, so that means when go, when start, do this. So this is actually your entry point to the game, and you can throw things out by clicking delete or just dragging them over here. Then we have the control section where we have things like wait, repeats, if statements, things like that. And then we have what is basically an event as well, but it's down here because it's part of this group of three where you have like when I start as a clone, create a clone, and delete a clone. So maybe they should actually have had their own section because clones are their own thing. Then we have sensing, everything where something is happening, like touching something, edge or whatever, um, when something is pressed, key, whatever, etc. Then we have all the math stuff. So there's a normal math, plus, minus, divide, product, random, bigger, smaller, equals, and then we have logic, and or not, etc. Variables, we have ability to set a variable, to change a variable, to show a variable, hide a variable, and importantly, make a variable. And a variable can be made in two different ways. It can be for all sprites, meaning global, or for this sprite only, meaning a local variable. So that's important too. And then finally there's this thing called my blocks. We're not going to make any blocks ourselves today. All right, so we want to do uh, let's see how far, 5 minutes. Okay, we want to do a snake game. So you know Snake, good old game from back in the day, where you basically guide your snake around, and it has to eat stuff that appears and not hit your own tail or hit the edge. So I'm going to start out by creating my sprites. I just deleted the other ones. So I'm going to choose the paint tool, and that will open up my paint thing here. And I'll zoom in quite a bit. And I will draw a sprite using my rectangle tool here. And I'll make sure that it's centered on this anchor point here. And I want it to be 4 by 4, and I want it to be green because my snake is green, like so. And I will put it just inside this box because I'm going to make our grid size 20 by 20, and each of these squares are 5 by 5. So to give it a little bit of a gap, I'll just draw it like this. So that's pretty good. And then I can tweak it just a little bit afterwards. Come here, like so. And if you have a border here, you can just turn it down, turn it up. It's up to you. Anyway, that's my sprite, and I'll label that snake. Oh, snake, like so. And I want a copy of that, and I want all of my sprites to have the same size, so I want to copy this. So I just right-click this and say duplicate, and that will create snake 2. And I'll go in and grab my arrow here, select that, and I will make this red because that's a nice juicy berry. I'll call that food. There. And I'll make one more. And this one I'll make a slightly brownish color thingy. Yeah. Something like that. Oh, why didn't it? Okay, anyway. Let's see. There. Yep. And I'll call that snake tail. Nice. And we have these sprites here that we can move around. And I don't want my snake tail to be visible, so I'll just turn on the visibility for it, or turn off the visibility. So I'll go to my snake and I'll start doing the code. So my entry point is, of course, my when a green flag clicked. And the first thing I want to do is for my character here to be centered on the screen. So I'll just go to go to, yeah, and set it to 0.0. So when I start the game, it pops into the center. Great. And the next thing I want to do is I want to create an input handler, and that will be an event. So I go when space, or rather when any pressed. Actually, I'll do this the different way this time. So when up pressed, and when I'll just duplicate these 4 times because I need to use these keys. So I'll have up, down, right, and left. So these are just event handlers that will trigger when something is pressed. So if I run my program now, you can see that actually it stops because there's no action here. It'll be visible in a second. So I need a couple of variables. I want to make a variable called x direction. Yeah. Let's just call it x direction. Yeah. Okay. There, and then we're gonna go and do y direction. There you go. And you can see they are now visible up here. I can't spell. I simply can't spell. I have to delete this. We'll just try again. X direction. There we go. Okay. So they are up here, so I can use this for debugging. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this up arrow and the down arrow to do things. So I go set variable, and I need to do two of these. So I go X direction and I go Y direction. And I need to make four of these. One for each of the other ones. There we go. And I'll plug it in there, and I'll plug it in there, and this one down there, and like so, and that one. Okay, so I have all of them. Now they are bundled up. Okay. And when I press the up arrow, I want the X direction to be 0, because I'm not moving in the X direction, but Y direction should be 1. Okay. And when I press the down arrow, X direction should be 0, and Y direction should be -1. And when I press my left arrow, I should have -1 in X direction, 0 in Y direction, and finally 1 direction there. So as I run my game, you can see that by pressing the buttons, I can trigger different outputs up here. So I have different states. I have 4 different states, moving right, left, etc. So now I have to create my game loop over here. And for now, I just want to make this an endless loop. I'll change that later. Okay, I have a forever loop. And what this forever loop will do is it will change my X and Y position. Like so. Plug it in there. And I'll change it by my X direction value and my Y direction value. So basically, if I run the game now, you can see that when I change things, I'll start moving it around. One problem though, when I start the game, it'll use the setting from last because I need to reset my variables. Just need to bring in 2 of these. Just go X direction 0, Y direction, Y direction 0. Plug that in here. So as I start, it'll be here waiting, and then as I push, it'll start to move around. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, so I'll jump over to the food, and I'll create a thing here. But no, one thing I'll do. I could just use when green flag clicked. But that would be messy to have 2 of these, because which one is being evaluated first, and no, that's messy. So instead, I will create a broadcaster message here. So I'll go broadcast, and as my game starts here, I'll broadcast a message, and I'll make a new message, go game start. So that means that these 3 lines are being, everything above this will be handled first, and then it'll send a message across the game going game start. And my food will receive game start. And then what it will do is it will forever go to a random position. There we go. And after it's gone to a random position, it will wait until sensing says it's touched by the snake. Okay, so let's see what happens now. So if I run the game now, I can move my snake around, and as I touch this, it will pop to a new position. So that's exactly what we want. So that's nice. Everything is working fine. It's just that we need to create a grid system for this to work out. Let's see. Okay, 14 minutes. We have to speed up. We're not going to make it all in one video. Anyway, I want this to move on a grid. So I will create a new magic variable, and I'll call it grid size. And I'll set the grid size at the beginning, and the grid size should be 20. That was the thing I was saying about the size of my sprite. And then I'll use a multiply node here, or multiply function, so that I can multiply my X and Y direction by my grid size. There. And there. So now everything will be very quickly. If I run it now, you can see it'll go really fast because yeah, It's moving fast. So I'll put in a delay here, and that will be wait, and I will be waiting 0.2 seconds, like two tenths. So that will make my snake move like this. That looks nice. So now I need to make my food also fit the grid, because it doesn't fit the grid all of the time. So I pop to the food, and I'll create my own go to random here, because this one will just use any random position, but I want it to fit the grid. So what I do, I'm going to use a go to. Bam, 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 go to here, and I'm going to go to operators, and I'm going to operators and go to pick random, and I'll use multiply. So I'll just go -10 to +10. I can change that later, and I'll plug that in there, and I'm going to use my grid size there, and I need 2 of these, like so. So I'm just going that one and that one. Okay. So what will happen now is that it will jump to a random position that is on my grid. And actually, my problem is that I think the largest point that is reasonable here is like 160, and this is time 20, so this should be -8 to 8. And in the horizontal, the reasonable thing is like 222, so that would be -11 to 11. Yeah, should be good. So if I run this now, everything should be on the grid. Brilliant. Everything works. So now I have the issue that things are stuck behind these variable checks. So I'll just get rid of those. Just go, I don't need you, I don't need you, I don't need you. But I need a new variable. Let's see what are we doing for time. Okay. I'll stop for now, and then I'll continue with the score in the next video. So okay.